Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. It is Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. It is 9:08 a.m. This is set to go until noon today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser joining us via Zoom. And joining us here shortly in the boardroom is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. We'll start our agenda today with the Public Health and Social Services Infectious Disease Update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Public Health and Social Services Interim Director, here with the infectious disease update. I would say that the last update we provided was on September 13th. So I just want to give you some perspective on some of these numbers as we go through them. I'll start with COVID-19. And this data is all as of October 2nd, unless otherwise noted. Total cases in Thurston County as of October 2nd is 59,045 as reported by the state. Unfortunately, there's been 467 deaths that's been reported by the state. And then just to give some perspective, though, on September 13th, we reported 462 deaths. So there's been an increase of 5 deaths since that last report. 14-day per 100,000 case rate is at 138.1. Reported 146.4 on September 13th, so that gives you some perspective, and it's a little bit lower than what we previously reported on the 13th. Our hospitalization data is as of October 2nd, and then total hospitalizations since the beginning of the pandemic are 2,877. Currently, our COVID patients we have 16 COVID patients with 1 possible. And to give you a perspective, that's holding about the same as on the 13th of September when it was 16 COVID patients and 0 COVID patients. So about the same for hospitalization data. Number of patients on vents is the same as what was reported on the 13th. That's 1 patient on ventilation. Our ICU available bed capacity is 9 adults, and our acute bed available capacity is 20 adults. Congregate care outbreaks, we have 281 congregate care outbreaks total since the beginning of the pandemic. On the 13th of September, reported 200, and I don't have an actual update on that one because my last number for that, it goes back in August, so I'll have to get you that update. 17 congregate care outbreaks are currently ongoing, but again, 281 total congregate care outbreaks as of the 28th of September. For vaccination status, this is all as of October 1st. Total doses of vaccine in Thurston County are 580,915. So the percent of population initiating the primary series is 74.5%. And the percent of population completing the primary series is 67.4%. And then the percent of population initiating the primary series age 16 and older is 84%. And then the percent of population completing that primary series age 16 and older is 26.3%. Then going down to the age 6 months and over, the percent of population initiating the primary series age 6 months and older is 74.9%. And then the percent of population completing the primary series age 6 months and older is 67.8%. And then coming to boosters, the percent of eligible people receiving a booster age 5 and older is 58.8%. Those are as of October 1st. Vaccine clinics continue to have and use COVID-19 vaccine clinics. Today, we're having a clinic at the Yelm Community Center. This one is for the bivalent Pfizer booster for ages 12 and older, and that's located at 301 2nd Street Southeast in Yelm. And tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. we have a bivalent Moderna booster clinic for ages 18 and older at the McLean Black Lake Fire Department. That's located at 125 Delphi Road Northwest in Olympia. On Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have a bivalent Pfizer booster clinic for ages 12 and older. It's at the Family and Youth Resource Center, located at 200 Sleater Canyon Road Northeast in Olympia. And then on Saturday, October 8th, from 10 to 4, we have two clinics from 10 to 4. We have a Pfizer clinic for ages 6 months to 4 years. And we have a Moderna clinic for ages 6 months to 5 years. Again, that's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at our public health location at 412 Lily Road Northeast. For all clinics, appointments are highly recommended. And for additional clinics beyond this weekend, we encourage people to go to the Thurston County website or call 360-867-2610 for the clinic schedule beyond this weekend. For testing, we continue to provide test kits to the public and for those requesting those, and people can do that by calling 360-867-2610 for requesting test kits. And our strike teams are available for outbreak testing as well. One of the things I want to touch on is I'm sure everybody's heard that the governor's emergency proclamation expires at the end of this month. There's a number of areas that will go away from when that expires. However, one of the things that will happen is the Secretary of Health can continue some waivers or requirements under his authority under the RCW. And so currently we have masking in healthcare settings, which was still ongoing. And then some other waivers may be put in place or retained in place. But one of the other issues is that the FEMA funding for the COVID outbreak or pandemic will go away at the end of this month, not for costs already incurred, but any future costs beyond the end of October, with some very limited exceptions. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Abdulmalik for her portion of the update as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are continuing to monitor COVID-19 transmission rates, which have plateaued, as well as COVID-19 hospitalization rates, where we're seeing a slight uptick in hospitalization rates per the CDC monitoring. Per the CDC monitoring dashboard. So we're currently at 6.7 new COVID-19 hospitalizations, which means people who have been hospitalized and tested positive for COVID-19 in the 7 days ending on October 1st. Just to keep in mind, we still have a low community level of COVID-19 per the CDC's guidelines. So just a little bit of, just wanted to share that the CDC is looking at both transmission, making sure that transmission is less than 200 cases per 100,000 over 7 days, as well as hospital admissions. There's hospital admissions criteria, including hospital admission rates being less than 10 cases per 100,000 in the preceding 7 days. So while we're seeing a slight uptick, we're still very much in the low COVID-19 community level per CDC. However, we have seen increases in COVID-19 transmission and hospitalizations in the past and going into fall and winter. So I do want to encourage Thurston County residents, especially folks 12 and up, if you qualify for a bivalent booster, to get boosted. So folks that qualify for a bivalent booster are people who are 12 and up, have completed a primary series, and are at least 2 months out from their last COVID-19 vaccine dose, whatever dose that was. We are continuing to follow the FDA's evaluation of bivalent boosters for children ages 5 to 11, which is expected, early to mid-October. We continue to watch for that. We've also reached out to our community partners to see who has capacity to administer these bivalent boosters as well, and we continue to act as a vaccine depot for our community. I did want to I also wanted to share that going into fall and winter, while we've seen increases in COVID transmission in the past, we have also we also see transmission of other viral respiratory illnesses, including influenza. And I want to encourage, everyone in Thurston County to become vaccinated for influenza as well this season. So folks that qualify for influenza vaccination are folks 6 months and older, with very few exceptions, and this is widely available in our community. I wanted to also update all of you about the ongoing monkeypox or MPV outbreak. We statewide, we're seeing a decrease in the infection rate, but it's not. But the effort is far from over. So we continue to support folks who may have been close contacts of confirmed cases. We continue to provide Jynneos vaccine, as well as work with community partners to help get the message out to folks who are most affected. Additionally, we've been working on educational materials and one-pagers that can be shared, as well as brochures, and have done some outreach with community partners who've requested, quick educational presentations, looking at how monkeypox might present in their settings, and what prevention and mitigation measures they can take should that occur. So we're definitely continuing to support our community, both in terms of being able to support the communicable disease investigations work and vaccination prevention work, as well as the education piece. To date, Thurston County has administered 142 doses of Jynneos vaccine. And with that, I'm open to any questions anyone may have. Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Munster.
Yes, so going backwards, 142 doses of what vaccine you said there at the end?
Jynneos.
Jynneos, and that's related to monkeypox?
Yes.
So that means 142 people called with symptoms or were confirmed cases, or what does that mean, that they were administered a dose? Or they just they wanted to take a precaution and just decided to get a vaccine?
So, so in Thurston County, we have identified one presumptive positive case that was reported to us on September 9th of this year. We have, I guess, I was reporting that 142 doses of vaccine have been given. Jynneos is a two-dose vaccine with doses given 28 to 35 days apart. So we've both provided vaccine to people who have been close contacts, whether the case was in our county or another county. We have also done outreach to folks who are at high risk, in terms of the community of men who have sex with men, folks who may have exchanged sex for money, housing, or other materials, folks, and also included in the group that's eligible are folks who have who've had the awful experience of sexual assault, and so we continue to be able to provide vaccination for folks in those high risk categories.
Okay, and going back to the flu shot, I read an article about differences of opinion about timing your flu shot based on the fact that it's got like 3 months of efficacy, and some experts say wait till end of October or November so that you kind of you center the maximum efficacy on the maximum, part of the winter where it's most prevalent. Have you heard about that, or do you have any suggestions for the public on when to get their flu shot?
Yeah, so I actually looked up, read the CDC's recommendation for this year, and the recommendation that the CDC has is that that September-October window being what they recommend for this year. However, folks, even if folks don't get the flu shot, by the end of October, there's still benefit to getting the flu shot, at any point throughout flu season. But to get the most benefit, the CDC is recommending getting flu shots, definitely this month if you haven't already gotten it.
Okay, one more question, going back to COVID. So you said transmission rates had plateaued, but I thought on Friday I saw that the state's R0 rate had had jumped above 1, where it had been under 1 for many weeks. And I'm just wondering, did I see that correctly? And doesn't that mean transmission is increasing?
So let me take a look at the R0, because the R0 lags where we are. And so R0 is just it's the average number of additional folks infected by each person who tests positive. In terms of what we're seeing in Thurston, so the elevated R0 is as of September 10th, 2022. So what in terms of the transmission rates that we're seeing, when you look at the graphs, we haven't seen a significant spike in the in cases reported in Thurston at this time.
Thank you. Go me, and then I'll get you. I have 2 questions. The first question is in regards to that FEMA funding, and what activities are we still planning on having after October? So basically starting in November, are we just planning to basically shut down everything? And if we are still planning, 2 parts to this question, what kind of funding are we looking at to kind of be able to supplant the FEMA funding that we're going to be losing?
So, Commissioner, great question. The state has a separate pot of funding that the legislature appropriated in case the FEMA funding ends. And in this situation, they have come back to us and said that they are providing the COVID-19 resources out of that other pot of funding. And so, number one, vaccination will continue. The second piece is that a lot of our COVID activities will continue through December 31st, which is what we had planned all along anyway. We are confirming that with the state, number one, because we want to make sure we don't get caught short on funding. But at the same time, the plan is to switch this over in a gradual path over to day-to-day operations with our DCP division starting January 1st, where then COVID will be just another part of our disease control and prevention process past December 31st. But we don't anticipate a shortfall in funding, but we are confirming with the state as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Maybe related to that, Kurt, I believe there is an amendment where the board to consider on the con agreement next week, where foundational public health also allows for some of the COVID-19 response. Is that correct?
Correct. The Foundational Public Health has always allowed for COVID-19 response, but we do have two amendments for next week's agenda on the con.
Thank you. My next question is, Dr. A, you mentioned that you've been doing presentations and handing out information to community partners who've requested, and I'm wondering who those community partners are.
So we've been requested by school nurses. So to give a presentation on what the impacts might be on the schools, and we presented last Friday. We continue to have our healthcare partner briefing, which is every 3 weeks, which we've started several months ago and are continuing. Our next meeting of that group will be on the 6th. We have reached out to our staff members within our organization, with relationships with our houseless shelter communities, as well as syringe services, to get information to them as well.
Thank you.
And this is in addition to our work with community-based organizations serving the LGBTQIA community.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Was there any follow-up with organizations such as Pizza Clutch or Stonewall Youth, and trying to get that information out to them?
Yes, so we have shared information with Pizza Clutch and have reached out to Stonewall so that line of communication is open if they would like additional information.
Great, thank you. Okay, County Manager, go ahead.
Good morning, Doctor. I have a question back on the transmission rate. Right now, Thurston County is considered a low transmission rate based on the CDC guidelines. And do you have the number? I would assume that Thurston County is below 1 on the community transmission rate. Is that correct?
So in terms of R0, that's calculated at the state level rather than at the county level. I guess there are a few complicating factors in terms of, when I'm monitoring transmission rates, I'm looking at CLIA licensed and CLIA wave testing, which is what goes into the transmission rate calculation. So the cases per 100,000 over 7 or 14 days. And we haven't seen a significant increase there. We also watch outbreaks in congregate settings and schools. So we continue to trend those. We continue to trend those as well. With school starting, we've seen a mild, a bit of an uptick. We've seen a little bit of an uptick in terms of long-term care facility outbreaks, but we haven't seen, across the board, a transmission spike. So the R0 that was calculated on September 10th is statewide, and we haven't seen while it's too early to say whether we will have a spike in transmission in the coming weeks and months, we haven't seen that significant trend upward yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to homeless strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I don't have a lot to report today. All remains about the same for the right-of-way initiative, Ensign Road clearing, that's still undergoing, that's still on its way, and the HEN program, no new updates on those matters. The Regional Housing Council last week did vote to approve the interim governance structure that was discussed last week here at agenda setting. They did approve in that governance structure to include 2 non-voting members from the Housing Action Team on the RHC. And currently we're working on amending the ILA to reflect that change. And other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
No questions for me. Thank you, Keely.
Thank you.
Moving on to the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of October 4th, 2022. Call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menzer, and the approval of the Tuesday, October 4th agenda, as well as the approval of the board meeting minutes from September 27th, 2022. Any questions, comments on those?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we do have a presentation today from the prosecuting attorneys, and it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a yearly proclamation where the Board of County Commissioners will consider the month of October, in this case 2022, as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Christy Peters from the Prosecutor's Attorney's Office will be present, as well as other members dealing with domestic violence at the Prosecutor's Office, and members of the Sheriff's Office also will be attending this afternoon to receive this proclamation.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay.
No.
Moving on to opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I don't have any specific updates on this one.
Okay. We have 2 consent items, 3A and 3B. 3A from Emergency Services is resolution for disposal of surplus Medic 1 equipment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board reviewed this item last week, and the proposal is for you to consider surplusing Medic 1 equipment, and the equipment that includes ventilators, monitors, tablets, vehicles, medic units, and many other medical equipment. The approach will be first to see any organizations here in the county could probably use this equipment. That equipment in just has surpassed the useful life, but certainly they're still operational. If none of the organizations here, such as the West Region Medical Services, cannot use this equipment, then we'll make this available to the state. This particular approach and suggestion has been reviewed by the EMS Council, I believe, and has provided recommendations for the board to approve this item. Ben Miller Todd is here to answer any additional questions.
Ben, anything you would like to add?
That sounded wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, questions?
No questions, it's been reviewed by the board.
Commissioner Menzer?
No questions.
Okay. Moving on to the prosecuting attorney, item 3B, a resolution classifying position 09R00341 in the Thurston County Pay Plan and Classification Pay Plan.
This is a practice that every office and department goes through to determine what the right fit will be for any vacant positions they have on the organization. And this is really an attempt to address the current business needs as the business needs changes, as well as really the recruitment and retention issues that we're all facing across the county. So the prosecutor's office has gone through this process and is proposing to reclassify a vacant position as a legal assistant 1 to a legal assistant 2. And the job duties of this position will include preparing and coordinating felony preliminary appearances, assisting deputy prosecuting attorneys in hearings, and so on, and any activities related to the courts. So this particular item has a budget impact that goes from $4,837 per month to $5,333 per month That will be just about $496 increase a month, or 10.25%. At this point, the prosecutor's office is not asking for changes on the allocations of the budget. They're planning for 2022, they plan to absorb that through salary savings. However, as Commissioner Edwards has been consistent on this, this will become part of the baseline in 2023 and on. Any questions?
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Moving to department items, item 4A from the auditor's office, approval of the voucher list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration is to approve the voucher list for the week of August 29, 2022, for a combined amount of $8,218,363.33. The reason as to why this item is as a department item, because on pages 1 and 2, there is payments related to the atrium for a total of $8,838.05.
Questions, commissioners?
No questions.
Okay. Moving on to item 5A from the commissioner's office, waiving competitive bid requirements to update county strategic
I
plan.
would like to request to move this item for next week. I believe the last conversation that you had on this item was that Robin needs to come back with a little bit of an assessment as to where we are. We're not quite ready to provide that to the board, so we'll move this to next week. That will allow us to follow up on the request by the board.
So this item is stricken off. So the numbering will change. Emergency services, item 6A, intergovernmental EMS contracts for paramedical services.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week, commissioners, and this is related to the advanced life support, also known as ALS contracts. And this is renewal contracts with the Olympia Fire Department, Townwater Fire Department, and Thurston County Fire District number 3 in Lacey, which the current contract expires on December 31st, 2022. These contracts have been negotiated, and the next step is for you to approve those contracts. This particular action was reviewed by the EMS Council on their September 21st, 2022, and they have fully recommended approval to the Board of County Commissioners as presented. Okay.
Ben, anything you'd like to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. Nothing further I'd like to add.
Thank you. Questions, commissioners?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6B, approval of professional services contract amendment number 2 with Olympia Emergency Services.
This particular action is related to the medical program director, also known as the MPD. The medical program director provides services to really the whole entire system. And this is identified under Washington Administrative Code 246-976-01047. And really provides services, but also we have seen over the last few years, the need for those services have increased significantly. So this particular contract, for your consideration, is to renew and increase this particular for the next 12 months. Currently, we have a $94,792 per month, and the proposed contract for the next 12 months will be $224,572.32. That will be an increase from the $94,792 that I just stated. And again, this is really a reflection of the increased needs of those services this individual provides, and also the EMS Council has reviewed this on their September 21st, 2022 meeting, and have recommended to the Board of County Commissioners approval as presented.
Questions?
Maybe just mention the funding source, if you would, please.
Yeah, it's Medic 1. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Okay. Moving on, information technology, item 7A, renewal of JAVS maintenance.
The JABS, also known as the Justice AV Solutions, this is a system that has been incorporated into the core systems. the court system. And this has been an enhancement to how they conducted their services during court hearings. So this particular contract is a renewal with JABS to continue the maintenance of their support. This is an annual amount of $88,341.59, and this is that will be for the next 5 years. This is already included on the IT funding, and this is more about continuing with the services they provide to the county and the courts for them. Before I give Dennis the floor, I'd like to acknowledge Dennis has provided his resignation from county government, and his last day is at the end of this month. And just like to extend my appreciation for everything you have done for the county for the last 3 years. Your leadership is extremely appreciated, and you will be certainly missed in county government. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much, Romero. Very much appreciated my time here. Just if anything on the jabs, it's essentially similar to last week. This is just a licensing and maintenance renewal. So this is just to keep the system operational and licensed correctly. Excuse me.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions. I would like to point out this is often the case when we deal with technology where once we make the purchase, we're on the line, you might say, for continued licensing from that point on. I don't know if I agree with it, but I know it's a necessity, so thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, questions? No questions for me. I guess I would also like to extend, you're a short timer here now, Dennis, and it's sad to see you go. We appreciate everything that you've done for the county, and especially educating all of us when it came to our IT systems, as well as, one thing that I it was a win for you, in my opinion. I was still a county employee when we got public Wi-Fi accessible. So I was very excited about that. That was something that you helped institute that I was always like, how can we not have it? So always appreciated your way of thinking and a lot of the updates that you've helped push through. So thank you, really.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank all of you for your support. Like I said, my time here has been great. I'm hoping, some of the groundwork and processes I put in outlive me and continue to support the county and provide services around the county.
Yes, definitely. Okay. With that, we'll move on to Public Works. Item 8A, approved County Road Administration Board Rural Arterial Program Grant Application, Tilly Road South and Old Highway 99 Southeast.
Thank you, Madam
Could we
Chair.
also cover item B as well, which is the approve the County Road Administration Board Rural Arterial Program Grant Application? And this is for 113th Avenue, Purple Road Southeast.
Madam Chair, both items 8A and 8B are similar. The department is asking authorization for the board to submit an application to the County Road Administration Board, also known as CRAB. The first one is to apply for a grant of $2,100,000 for improvements on Tilly Road. And the second item is to submit an application for $1,100,000 to the County Road Administration Board to make improvements on 113 in McCorkle Road. Both projects have a higher cost, obviously, and the first one has a total cost of $2,645,000, and the remainder, if we receive the entire grant, the remainder funding will come from the road fund. Similar to the previous, for the 113 McCorkle, the total cost is expected to be $3,750,000. And the additional funding will come also from the road fund. And I believe we have Marcus here from Public Works to answer any questions.
Questions?
No, I don't have any questions if Marcus doesn't have anything to add.
Good morning, Mark Storvik, Senior Civil Engineer. No, I have nothing to add. The County Manager covered it.
Okay. Questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, contract award for Kennedale Park restroom replacement project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm still. On September 1st, 2022, the Department of Public Works received the 3 bids related to the construction of the Kennedale Park restroom replacement. This is based on the authorization from the board to issue that the bid proposal. So the conclusion of this proposal, the department is recommended for the board to award the contract to NICO Construction LLC from Tomwater, Washington for $688,262.29. That is the low bid. And also the department is asking for you to consider a 10% increase on the award of $68,826.23 to cover any unexpected overruns during this particular project. This will be covered by the park impact fees and the real estate excise tax too. And I believe we have Marcy here to ask a question.
I'm here in a support role for project manager Keevan.
Keevan.
Keevan, anything you'd like to add?
Good morning. No, I think that was covered well.
Okay. Questions?
No questions. I would point out to the public, we've talked about this quite a bit over the previous months.
Questions? No? Okay, item D, contract award for the Chehalis Western Trail 41st Avenue Trailhead Access and Parking Project.
Similar to the previous item, as a result of the board authorizing issuing bids, on September 1st, 2022, the department received 11 bids to construct the trailhead access and parking related to the Chehalis Western Trail on 41st Avenue Southeast Avenue. Bids were received, were reviewed, and the department is recommended for you to award the contract to J.H. Kelly LLC of Longview, Washington for the low bid of $341,832.96. The department also is requesting an additional 10% of $34,183.30 to cover any unexpected overruns during construction. Similar to the previous item, this contract will be covered by the park impact fees as well as the real estate excise tax too, and those two are included in the current budget for public works.
Thank you. Keevan, anything you would like to add?
Nothing. I think it was covered well.
Ed? Nope. Okay. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, no questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed, it was good to see you in person. Thank you for coming.
Same to you. 2 days in a row.
2 days in a row. Okay, we have 2 public hearings at 3:30 p.m. The first one is from Community Planning and Economic Development, which is a public hearing for A-8 Habitat Conservation Plan, Implement an Ordinance and Fee Resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you allow me, I'll take a couple minutes to walk you through something you already know, but perhaps for the public's perspective. This has been really a long journey and goes back to maybe 2014 or so, when the federal government listed subspecies of the pocket gopher as an endangered species in Thurston County. The result of that aspect was how to re-protect the environment in which they thrive and live. And that was the premise in which the county embarked on the Habitat Conservation Plan. The Habitat Conservation Plan, the HCP, is an instrument in which we can probably issue permits to any county resident. They may like to develop their property without having to go through an individual HCP through the federal government. As you may recall, we had an interim process, including in 2022, with any applicant that was included within the habitat of the endangered species. They had 2 options, or maybe 3 options. One is to wait until the county has a habitat conservation plan, and as a result, the county will take responsibility of the mitigation related to their impacts of their development. The second option that currently any applicant will have is to avoid any impacts to that environment. As a result, they will not be able to develop the property. Or perhaps they have enough land, they can avoid the impact within that environment. In the third option, some of the members of the public will have and have had over the last few years is to go ahead and have process their own habitat conservation plan with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. The board has been aware of a couple of occasions which individuals have taken that third option in order for them to develop the property. And that is a long, long road for those property owners. I will probably have to say that one, at least that I know, particularly Mr. Ben, has gone through the process maybe twice. And his story was he wanted to develop his property to build a home for their kids, his kids. And it was 2 homes that he liked to parcel that out. And it was right in the middle of the habitat of the pocket gopher. He went on a 2-year journey in each of those occasions with Fish and Wildlife. It cost him a lot of time, cost him a lot of money. Eventually, he got an incidental take permit. The result of that was he needed to reserve an easement within his property to accommodate the impacts of him building a home for his kids. So that is probably, in my opinion, is what is the example of the third option the citizens have, absent an HCP. What the HCP moves forward is really to allow the citizen to go somewhat of a pay-and-go system. In a pay-and-go system, I like to always draw a parallel to wetland mitigations. Wetland mitigations is a state law, as well as every single individual who has a proposal to develop a property and they have impacts to wetlands, they have to mitigate it. And they have to mitigate it either on site or upside, that is a cost. In this case, it's the same scenario in a way. There's going to be an impact to a listed species here in Thurston County. But the county in this case will take responsibility for the mitigation requirements that each property owner will have. And that is been the middle difference. But also, there is a cost associated with that, and that is the proposed public hearing that you will hear today in terms of the fees and charges. Also, before I can dive down a little more details of the fees that you may be receiving in public hearing, over the years I have used this analogy. The Thurston County was put in a box. In this box, the federal government, by listing those species in Thurston County, put the county in a box. We didn't like the box. We didn't want to be in the box, but we didn't have no option be in this box. And I believe the HCP and the Habitat Conservation Plan and the ordinances before you as a result of this, they will be hearing this afternoon from the public, is a way to get out of the box and provide services to the public without having that, what I call the dark cloud of not being able to develop their property as they see fit. Related to the fees, the board has been very proactive on this, and you have set aside and committed just about 50% of the Conservation Futures Fund that comes to you every year, and specifically to try to subsidize and lessen the impact of the fees those property owners may face as they try to develop their property. You will hear this afternoon, the board has certainly options before you. The option that you will hear this afternoon from staff is approve as proposed by the, and that will give the options to implement the new system in January 1st, 2023. You can obviously, based on the public testimony, you can approve the proposal with revisions, ABC revisions that may be suiting your perspective. And the third option is you don't have to approve it. I mean, that is absolutely within your purview not to approve any ordinances or any fees associated with this venture. What has happened, if that is the case, and this is just my humble opinion, we will continue to have this interim process that the individual will have to go through as I've described, Mr. Tibetan's experience in going through their own HCP with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So I like to say that it has been a long, long road. Staff, Chris, Josh, and his team, as well as in coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff, has done a tremendous work. This is not an easy lift. It's a heavy lift, and a lift that we ought to do to benefit the residents of Thurston County. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions. Looking forward to hear public input. Thank you.
Commissioner Munzer?
So if the board heard comment and just wanted to change something, obviously this is a complex process. We have an incidental take permit from U.S. Fish and Wildlife that has certain conditions embedded within the HCP. So would we get advice as to what changes could be made in this ordinance that wouldn't run afoul of our plan? Because to pass an ordinance that is contrary to the HCP gets us nothing. It basically just throws the whole thing in the trash.
Absolutely, and you already received comments on suggesting languages changes from the chambers this morning, I believe. That is something that you may consider on the follow-up briefing that you have scheduled on October 13th.
We'll have legal counsel.
Yeah, we'll have legal counsel will give you every single resource that is available to you. If there is a need to have an executive session for you to get a legal opinion, we will do so. But this afternoon, I will ask the board only to close the public hearing. There is not the time for you to assess and respond to any comments, nor is staff will be in the position to assess and respond to any comments. On July 13th, we'll make sure that we have October 13th, thank you. We'll give you enough time, and hopefully by then, if you can give me questions ahead of time, we'll make sure that we'll have the answers to you for July 13th.
For October 13th.
October 13th, I know what I'm thinking. I'm still in the summer mood myself. So it's October 13th, 2 in the afternoon, I believe, is that correct? Chris, the follow-up briefing, or 1?
I believe it's at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, thank you. On October 13th, 2022.
Okay, okay. I do have at 1:45 that I'm assuming that I have to attend, but hopefully we can use the time to get out and see where we're at.
I was like, 45 minutes is not going to be enough.
Anything to add?
I think you're
my
right.
rambling with this?
No, we look forward to presenting the information to the board this afternoon and getting the public testimony.
And Chris, how long is the presentation going to be?
My presentation should take 2-3 minutes at tops.
Oh, wow, okay.
I got a lot of background I gotta give you.
Okay. There's no further questions. We'll move on to our second public hearing, which will follow this one, and it's a public hearing to amend the speed limit schedule for various county roads.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You will receive public testimony in a proposal to change the speed limits on 6 county roadways in the county. As in the past, the board has latitude to relate to changes on the speed limits. What I'm saying latitude is whether you like to deny all the requests approved as presented, or you can just state or take any particular segments based on the public comment that you might receive this afternoon. For your consideration, there is 2 actions this afternoon. Move to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony, for your option is to approve as presented. You don't have to take a second action this afternoon. If there is a need based on the public testimony that you would like to continue this conversation, we will schedule a follow-up briefing after today.
Thank you. Matt, anything you'd like to add?
No, it's part of our annual process. We receive a lot of service requests regarding speed limit revisions over the course of the year. And for the sake of your calendars, we don't have a public hearing for each one. We gather them up and do it towards the end of the year. And this is the annual meeting. And I'll have a 10-minute presentation at the beginning. And we have received a lot of public comment, and we expect a lot of in-person public testimony as well.
Shoot for 5 minutes, Matt.
We can do 5 minutes.
I'll put 5 to 10 minutes down. Okay, Commissioner Edwards?
Matt, on your public comment, is some of it positive and some negative, or pro, con? What's the deal?
The majority of it is positive.
Do you have any timed preference that you think we should act sooner, maybe safety issues or something, and it's a no-brainer versus maybe some that'll take some discussion?
No, sir. If you need to take if you don't want to take an action today, we can definitely come back in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? No? Okay. So then that will conclude our second public hearing. After that, we would go over standing items. And just as regular, I'll be pausing our regular meeting at 3:30 to start our public hearings. And hopefully by that time, we've concluded with our regular agenda. If we have not, then we will be picking up once we've concluded the 2 public hearings. And Jamie, it's all on one Zoom? Okay, perfect. Okay, let's review our agenda for October 11th, and then we will take a short break. So for our agenda on October 11th, we will call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, October 11th agenda, and approval of the board meeting minutes from October 4th, 2022. Everything looks good so far?
Yes.
Okay. We have one presentation, and it's from the Auditor's Office. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month Proclamation.
Yeah, and the copy of the proclamation is in your packet. If you have any suggestions, please let us know. This is the opportunity for the Board of County Commissioners to proclaim October 2022 Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Thurston County. The County Auditor, Mary Hull, will be present. And I'd like to give really kudos to Mary, because she has spearheaded the cybersecurity here in the county. She's obviously, this presents a key element on election security, and you will hear even more her presentation next week when she attends for this proclamation.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, is Dennis gonna be here? Is his time up yet?
No, he will make sure that he's here. His last day is the end of the week.
Okay, I was just gonna, maybe if he couldn't, maybe somebody from his shop could.
Yep, absolutely. We'll make a point if that's the case.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay. Next is opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
We'll follow up any items that needs to be followed based on the public testimony you may receive this afternoon.
Thank you. Okay, consent items A through C. Item 3A from the Auditor's Office, approval of the voucher list.
For your consideration, Commissioners, ask for you to approve the voucher list for the week of September 5th, 2022 for a combined amount of $2,403,243.61. In this particular voucher list, there are not atrium expenditures.
Okay. Questions?
No. Thank you. No questions on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3B from Human Resources, a resolution establishing new positions and extending end dates of positions in the Thurston County Pay and Classification Plan and the Thurston County Management and Technical Pay Plan.
So a little bit of perspective on this, if I may, Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners has set aside a significant amount of money for the ARPA funds to deal with the backlog related to the COVID-19 impacts. I have met with the law and justice members related to the backlog, and as you know, they're continuing to have issues in recruiting for positions. The first item that you have for your consideration, it is the request of the law and justice members is to extend the current temporary positions from December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. And that will allow a little bit of recruitment incentives as well as time to deal with the backlog cases. And the second request for your consideration is to add a new defense attorney 2 and a legal assistant 1. And this is related to deal with the backlog cases in district court. I have met with the team again, and I strongly recommend for you to consider this action, because that's a way to continue to move forward in addressing the backlog cases on both superior and district courts.
This is funded with ARPA?
Yep. It's all ARPA funded.
Questions?
Is this a direct result of the Blake case?
No, this is the backlog cases.
Yeah, yeah,
To COVID-19.
For COVID
COVID-19.
completely?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the Blake case?
Yeah, because we wouldn't be able to use ARPA funds for Blake related.
I was hoping we'd just get some help.
Blake, we get from the state.
Yes.
Blake funding.
Yeah, everything we spend related to Blake is reimbursed by the state.
So there's not a gap.
No
on the
nexus
funding.
there. Okay, thank you.
Well, my recommendation is, this is very vague. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't talk about the positions, and for me, I mean, I would like a little bit more information, especially for the public. Just reading that, it's like, what is going on? I'm not against it, but for me, it's, you know, I would like to know a little bit more too. So the positions that, there's 2 actions in one, so there's a position to extend.
They already approved positions by the board.
Yeah, from,
Which has an end date of this year, 2023, to extend those positions to December 31st, 2024.
okay,
How many of those are there?
I believe the board approved 5 positions.
Five is my
5 positions.
So it's a 5-position extension
Yeah.
every year, plus the creation of an attorney and a legal assistant
Yeah,
one.
2, and those are for district court, particularly the second action. If you
2
like,
attorneys
no, 1 attorney and 1 legal assistant.
and 1 legal assistant, and then,
If you like, we can split those 2 actions, if that is more convenient for you.
Or we
Or
could
just say-
simply change the motion to state that these are to address the court backlog created by the COVID.
yeah, just something like that. Like, we don't read these because it's a consent item, but just a little bit more explanation. I mean, I would appreciate it, right? Just reading through this, kind of what it is that we're doing. My question, so in regards to those 5 positions that are being extended, where are they situated right now? Are they are they split throughout all the law and justice
So we
members?
have those positions included, 1 in Superior Court as the backlog program manager. And we have 2 attorneys and the prosecutor's office and 2 attorneys on public defense.
Okay. And go ahead, Commissioner.
And that was really related to family cases associated with Superior Court.
Okay.
Normally, when we change position, I don't know, job descriptions or extensions, ending dates, we usually have the position number along with each one of the So it would be a group, there'd be 5 position numbers listed in here that kind of show that it's a definite for those, rather than just new positions, because that is pretty vague, just to say.
We'll add more
Okay.
description. Yeah.
So I would suggest at least the numbers, like a resolution establishing 2 new positions and extending endings of 5 positions at a minimum. At least the people at least know the scope, could see the scope of this action.
Yep.
You know,
Yep, absolutely.
and then if you want to go even further with position numbers, I'm not opposed to that.
Maybe it's supposed to position that I can add the resolutions that you passed creating those temporary positions. That may probably cover all that. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm along with the chair here. She's got a good idea.
Okay, so moving on to item C, from Human Resources, resolution setting 2023 medical benefit contributions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. This is a result of the briefing that you received last week on September 28th related to the healthcare insurance benefits that we provide to county employees. Through the process, you agreed to follow the recommendations from Human Resources, which has an increase of just about 12% from last year. And I believe that the board is cognizant of that, as you believe this is the good benefit to county employees. And this is the result of that conversation where you need to pass a form of resolution affirming that decision.
Thank you. Questions?
I see as we move forward on this, it's gonna be, a motion to move to approve the resolution. I don't know which resolution, or a resolution, which, are we gonna have a resolution designated?
The number, we usually don't have a number.
No?
We assign the number after the board passes that.
But I would like to have, I don't know who would present this, but let those folks know that we are very concerned about our employees. And one of the main issues here was retention and recruitment. I'd like to have the public know that's a big concern to us.
And I think maybe through this conversation is exactly the forum, because this is our new consent agenda. It will not be a department presentation.
Okay.
So I think your message is on point. You hope the employees are listening to this and the public as well, because even so, I will probably encourage anybody to watch the live streaming or the recording of the September 28 briefing, in which you specifically highlighted the importance of recruitment and retention. And you also highlighted the importance of continuing to support county employees with their benefits.
Questions, Commissioner Minster? Okay. Moving on to department items, community planning and economic development. I'd set a public hearing on docket item A24, emergency housing ordinance code update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is you had a briefing early in the year related to this particular proposal. This is related to the emergency housing ordinance. The Board of County Commissioners have reviewed this interim emergency housing ordinance, I believe, almost 7 times, if not more. Yeah, correct me on the number. And also this year, the board approved to include this item on the official docket. That would be the item A24 for the board to consider having a permanent interim emergency housing ordinance. This is the result of this process, and the Planning Commission has provided recommendations, and you also had a good conversation with some of the suggestions the Planning Commission provided to you. This is the next step is for you to receive public testimony, in this case on November 8th, 2022 at 3:30 in the afternoon. And there's a lot of a timing on this, because if the board would like to continue with the interim resolution currently expires, I believe, December 9th, 2022. So we're trying to align all those steps for the board to have the options before you consider taking a final action. Leah?
Good morning, Commissioners. Leah Davis with Community Planning. That's a good summary of what is going on. I think you said there were seven renewals of this, and actually it was adopted once and then renewed 5 times.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And are there any questions?
Questions, Commissioners?
No questions. We still don't have anything prioritizing residency and helping those folks that are locals over recent arrivals. Is that right?
No, the land use code doesn't have that in it currently.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Munster?
I just add that the briefing that the county manager referred to, that the board discussed the planning commission's changes, was on September 28th. Thank you, if folks would like to key into that.
A lot of big briefings on September 28th.
Keep you busy, Commissioners, keep you busy.
Okay. Moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 5A and 5B, their approval of amendment number 7 and number 8 to the Washington State Department of Health 2022 through 2024 Consolidated Contract, number CLH 31030.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Those 2 items are related. It's related to what we call as the CONCON, the Consolidated Contract, which is CLH 31030. And as you may recall, the board back in January 2022 approved the overall umbrella contract with the State Department of Health, for the county to receive funding through the state to continue to support public health activities. In the last few months, you have approved 6 amendments. They have the amount of $11,001.17, I believe. No, that's the revised amount. It was close to $12 million, which the board has approved through the 6 amendments. So amendment number 7, and this is a funding reduction on that contract. Not to scare you, it was an oversight by the State Department of Health as to when they allocated the funding on the last amendment. The staff from Public Health was well aware of that mistake, so we never included on the budget or never assumed that revenue because we knew the state perhaps had an error on the allocation, and this is amendment number 7 is to correct that. So the actual allocation is a reduction of $992,037 that was included on the amendment number 6. Now the total contract at this point after the reduction is $11,001,017. That is really the request, is to adjust the amount that has been allocated to the county. Kurt?
Good morning, Commissioner. Kurt Harden, Interim Director, Public Health and Social Services. County Manager gave a great update, or great summary, I should say. And this is not a reduction in any services that we were planning on implementing for the public. So this is just a correction, as the County Manager stated.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we will review our standing items.
I'm sorry if I made the next item is related to amendment number 8.
Oh, I thought you covered.
No, amendment number 8 is related to the same item as the CONCON contract. And in this particular case is we're not changing the amount. Is what we're changing is the statement of work to cover COVID-19 mass vaccination programs. And so it's just changes on the scope of work and the activities that this particular contract will cover. There is not a change on the dollar amount, and there's not a change on the performance of this contract either. So this is more a procedural amendment that we need to go through just to make sure the activities are covered.
Questions?
No questions.
Kurt, anything you'd like to add?
No, good summary. It just changes the funding source inside of Department of Health from one fund to a different fund, so we can continue the vaccination through December 31st.
Perfect, thank you. And then we will have our standing items. We have a Board of Health meeting at 3:30 p.m. that day. Commissioner Menser, I don't know if you want to give an overview of that.
So, and that's a good point, thank you. The reason that I don't have this for your agenda because the makeup of the Board of Health has changed. And the review of the agenda, I believe Jamie's trying to schedule a meeting between the chair and maybe board member Vasquez to review the agenda this week. And that will be part of the agenda. That agenda really is gonna be the beginning of the new Board of Health members. I'm working with Kurt and Jamie to lay it out what that is. So that is, here I cannot bring that agenda anymore because the Board of Health members is beyond yourselves. So that requires a little bit of a different approach. So hopefully next week, with all the 7 new members of the Board of Health, we'll start working the discussion as to how that agenda review will be, when you're gonna be meeting as a board, as the new Board of Health. There is a lot of steps that needs to be agreed upon next week with the new board members.
So I just thought of this in the moment, so I didn't really thought this through, but the 3 of us are not a quorum of the Board of Health. So we could, I don't see why we couldn't review the Board of Health agenda. We can't make changes to it or do anything to it because we're not a quorum of the body. But in terms of me, it's kind of like if Commissioner Mejia at Commissioner's Check-In says, I'd like to go over what's going to be discussed at RHC this week, in case you wanted to weigh in kind of thing. Why couldn't we discuss the Board of Health just like we did for the redistricting? We brought that back and we discussed the maps and we gave Commissioner Mejia our input that she would then go to the real committee. So why wouldn't we do it that way?
That's a good point. I was just trying to be respectful of the makeup. And it well may be that may be the case, that you will review future agendas down the
Just
road.
for information of these board members.
I just want to make sure because this, at this point, my words is everything's in limbo in a way. Because you don't know if you're going to continue to have the Board of Health meetings on the second Tuesday every month at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
You don't know how, what elements you would like to do. You, at this point, need to have a conversation whether you need to have committees within the Board of Health to address specific items. You need to discuss how you're going to be reviewing the agenda, whether it's the whole Board of Health membership or not. So, and that's what I wanted to be respectful of your makeup, because that becomes, at least from my point of view, humble point of view, is still in limbo. And I don't know if you want to add anything else on that, Kurt. That's the only reason. No other than that.
You know, I concur with the county manager's assessment as well, and with at least waiting until we get to the discussion point next Tuesday with the entire Board of Health.
Go ahead.
I guess just for the benefit of the audience, anytime we talk about this particular issue, could you at least maybe preface it with the fact that the state law changed?
Okay.
And we now have this new requirement on the creation, because it sounds like we kind of don't know what we're doing. And I'm not sure that's truly true. That's not necessarily
Well, that's not
correct.
necessarily the case. This has been
It's been a long process
It's a
and the
long
public
process.
won't understand.
I
kind of what
appreciate
we're
that,
doing.
Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the floor of that. Back in on the 2021 legislative session, the legislature changed the makeup and the requirements of the boards of health across the state. For home rule counties such as Thurston County, the Board of County Commissioners have served as the Board of Health of that nature.
Non-home rule.
Not home rule, thank you.
Okay.
So within that context, the piece of legislation created several new positions. And then at the minimum will be that elected officials cannot be more than citizen representatives. And the citizen representatives needs to be a representative from the healthcare, a representative from somebody who has been a part of the public health, who has been adversely affected by it, and somebody from a nonprofit. And the fourth element is a representative from a tribal who has a presence on any given county. And the last one, continues to be a little bit of an issue. You have taken an action to appoint Councilmember Vasquez from the city of Lacey, and she will be serving a 2-term. And the terms of the additional elected officials, aside from the Board of County Commissioners, will have a 2-year term. And that will be in a rotation basis. After Councilmember Vasquez finishes his 2 terms, the next appointment will be by the city of Olympia, followed by the city of Tumwater, and lastly, followed by the city of Young, the 2-year representatives. On the citizen representatives, you have already taken an appointments. I can't remember the last names of all of them, but we'll get that to you. And you have already appointed 3 positions that meet the requirements of the state law. Those appointments are for 3 years. It's a little bit different. And the tribal representative needs to be assigned by the Indian Health Commission by the state. And there has been a lot of conversations really as to how that appointment will be, because we have 3 tribes represented in Thurston County: Chehalis tribe, Squaxin tribe, and then the Squaw tribe. So we are expecting that they will make that determination as to who out of those 3 tribes will be represented on the Board of Health moving forward.
Did your question get answered? I know you had a question specifically because the state law says there can't be more elected officials than, but we don't have that
Yes.
appointment yet.
So the answer was the fact that we've created that position is good enough. So meaning whether or not somebody gets seated by the Indian Health Commission into that seat, it's not violative to have the 4 electeds, 3 non-electeds in the open seat, because the structure of the resolution provides for 4 elected and 4 non-elected. That was our attorney's opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that question was answered while we were on vacation, but thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
That was
so
an
we were gonna
important,
go
that was an
forward
important
with the 7,
conversation.
and when we get the tribal appointment, great.
Yeah.
They'll be
And,
involved.
but that will not prevent the new Board of Health to continue doing business.
Thank you. And so I'm just gonna say that the agenda involves a lot of logistical elements, as alluded to by Ramiro. It includes a public health overview, so that Kurt, I think, is putting together so that they have an understanding of what public health, the county public health system does and doesn't do. And then there's gonna be a section where we're gonna ask for ideas about topics, kind of a brainstorm about, what things would the different new members like to see covered in upcoming meetings, just kind of get a feel for that, what they'd like to see addressed. And those are the main chunks that we feel will take up a good amount of time.
Yeah. And I will
Electing
bring
officers and
I will bring the agenda of the Board of Health next Tuesday morning as an information for you, based on the feedback that I received today.
Okay. It is 10:31. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and then we will be back with proclamations and awards. Okay, we are back from break. It is 10:53 a.m. We left off with proclamations and awards, and we'll go ahead and tackle advisory boards and commissions. I'm passing it to Jamie Caldwell, our clerk of the board.
Good morning. Outside of the proclamations already.
Your mic is off.
Is that better? It's on.
Maybe if you can go, you can project.
Outside of the proclamations already reviewed, I've received several requests for additional proclamations this month, a couple for National Walk to School Month and a couple for National Disability Employment Awareness Month, both of which have been requested to be proclaimed for the month of October. Outside of issuing multiple proclamations on the same day, the current schedule doesn't really provide the time to allow for the additional requests this month, but I'm more than happy to add them to an upcoming agenda if the board is so inclined. I've had a couple employees from PHSS request, and someone requested the National Disability Employment Awareness Month through the auditor's office. Kathy Bright brought it to my attention. As far as boards and commissions, your packet is very full this week. I've received appointment and reappointment requests for the Agricultural Advisory Committee, Agritourism Advisory Committee, Historic Commission, Hotel Motel Commission, the Housing Authority, and the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. I'm still waiting for appointment recommendations from the Agritourism Advisory Committee and the Historic Commission. I also requested the staff contact for the Agritourism Advisory Committee provide me with an updated roster because I wanted to verify if they had an opening or not. I wasn't aware of one. The Housing Authority has 2 seats that are reaching their term, and both members have requested reappointment. Staff contact has provided an appointment recommendation that has been included in your packet for review. I did receive a few additional applications after that recommendation was provided, and I forwarded those for review. I received the response during our break, and their original recommendation still stands. Outside of that, the remaining have recommended appointment and reappointment as requested by the applicant. So unless there are any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
So I guess I don't have questions, I guess. Questions for my seatmates. I mean, what are we doing here? We've had these ones for the we've had some of these hanging for quite a while. We're still waiting for the ad committee.
Well, that's kind of, I had several questions in regards to we sent the Gary Klein and asked for a recommendation, and I haven't heard back from that on whether
They're recommending, so that's the summary there at the end is outside of those couple that I'm still waiting to hear from, which was the Agritourism Advisory Committee and the Historic Commission. The rest of them are recommending as requested.
Well, then, my recommendation would be let's move forward on the Agriculture Advisory Committee recommendations, which is Gary Klein as a non-farmer and Robert McIntosh as a reappointment as a farmer. And then you said for agritourism,
I'm still waiting.
you're still waiting to see if there's an opening. For the Historic Commission, Dr. John Grenier, I see that there's 3 openings. This is one of the committees that we've often struggled. I looked at his application, looks good, but I want to be respectful and make sure that my seatmates have looked at his application.
I'm ready to go on
The staff contact did indicate that they don't have their next meeting until Wednesday, I believe it is, so she was gonna bring it to them. I don't foresee them objecting because of the issue with recruitment for that one, so more than likely they'll reappoint, they'll recommend for appointment, but I haven't received a response from them yet.
Okay, so then we're gonna wait to hear back from the Historic Commission.
Don't bring it.
Okay. Then the Hotel Motel Commission, I only see 1 opening, correct? Have they made a recommendation?
So this one is actually that they've had 2 standing members that no longer, I don't believe they're employed with the hotels and the motels that they work for anymore. So the 2 that are on here are replacing them. They have 1 that actually left just recently, which leaves them with that 1 opening on the bottom.
Okay, and so with those, I'm ready to move forward on those because we can't really discuss that anyway, right? For RCW, we can't really.
You can discuss it, but the interlocal agreement specifies the commissioners will appoint the applicants that the commission puts forward to you.
So if commissioners are ready to move on, Rose and Janine.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move forward on those.
Are you okay with it?
Yeah, I think I am, but I do have a concern.
Sorry, I'm just, you didn't speak up, so I was like, okay, he's like, go ahead.
No, I'm wondering, where are we at on, who's on the ag committee right now?
I'll have to pull up there. I don't have it right in front of me.
Because I only see 2 applications in here right now. Did we make all those other appointments
Yes.
already? We did that like 2
Yeah,
weeks
I
ago.
wanna
A little longer than that.
Yeah, I think it
And then, are we gonna address the housing issue? Is that coming up next or
The
now?
housing authority,
Yeah.
yeah, that was gonna be next. I was
But,
just getting over it.
okay, you're just getting one thing at a time. Good enough.
So with the hotel motel commission, are you okay with moving forward with those? Okay.
Thank you.
Then let me go to the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. Phyllis Farrell is reappointment for District 1. How do you feel about that one, commissioners?
Phyllis Farrell?
It's your district. I know that's been a hard one. I have a letter from one of my appointments that says we're having trouble recruiting, and he's asking me to reach out and do recruitment. So if we've got somebody good that wants to be reappointed, I'm fine with that.
Phyllis has got a history of being involved.
Yeah.
Having a concern.
Okay, so we'll move forward on that one. So we're moving forward on the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, on the Agricultural Advisory Committee, on the on the Hotel Motel Commission. We're still waiting on the Agritourism Advisory Committee and the Historic Commission. Now for the Housing Authority, we have two who are up for reappointments, and we've received 4 new applications. And so one of my first questions for that is, I see the districts, are these appointments by districts? Does it matter, or?
I'll have to verify that because I'm not positive on it. All of these boards and commissions kind of they're all very different. It was just kind of why we were trying to get the handbook done and completed, kind of get everything reined in. We're in the process of making the red line edits to bring that final copy back forward for your review. So I can verify that with them just to make sure.
I don't remember us discussing the districts in regard to that board. And it's not a big enough board. There's only isn't there only 5 members? You say?
We'll look into district.
It looks like District 2 got left out of the equation there at some point. Just saying.
Just saying.
I'm gonna throw in my 2 cents in here.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
On the Housing Authority, I believe that continuity is worth something. And those with experience that have been active and kind of understand it, both Neil McClanahan and Jay Goldstein fill that criteria for me. And so I've got nothing against any new member that wants to get involved, but I would hope that all new members that are interested, at least interested in becoming a member, would participate for a while and get a sense of what's going on, because it's a very complicated operation under that Housing Authority committee. So that's kind of where I'm gonna initially be as we move forward. We can arm wrestle or whatever else we need to do.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. So since the day I got on the board, I've been advocating for term limits to this. It's 5-year terms, 2-year term limits is 10 years. I never got a second vote for that, but Mr. McClanahan's been on, I think, 25 years, so I won't be supporting his reappointment just because I believe that 10 years is adequate service. This is a very important issue and very important topic. So I'll be looking at one of the 4 additional applicants. Mr. Goldstein, I'm going to recuse myself from consideration of his reappointment. He's been a contributor to my reelection campaign, so I won't be voting on that, but I will be looking for the best of the applicants that we have before us for Mr. McClanahan's spot. Nothing about Mr. McClanahan, really appreciate his service. He's done an awesome job from what I'm told, but I do think that when there's 5-year terms and somebody served that long, and there's not that many, this is not a big board of 15 people. If I remember right, it's a 5-person board. So it's something I think that we should look at.
And if I may as well, they did have some further reasoning for why they were still continuing to recommend the 2 for reappointment that I can, if you guys decide to hold off on making a decision until next week, I can at least provide that to you for consideration for the other members that are asking for appointment.
It'd be one thing if there weren't a qualified applicant, but the 4 resumes that we have are pretty robust.
Do you want me to give a rebuttal, or are we gonna get move this any deeper?
Yes, go ahead. And I wanna get too deep into it today,
You don't want to take forever?
but
If you may require follow-up conversation, we'll check for next week for you, whether it's appointments at large or by district. And that may facilitate.
That might help
Might
the whole
facilitate your
process. Okay.
conversation a
if it's
little bit
only
better.
5, then I don't see how it would be by district
That's what I'm-
because
Maybe there's 3 by district and 2 at large or something. I don't know. the
Yeah,
answer,
so we'll confirm that, that may facilitate your conversation as you go.
Okay, so, if you haven't reviewed all the applications, please do so, and then we'll have this conversation next week.
More discussion to
More
come.
discussion to come.
I'll provide you with a further follow-up as well.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, and I also got an additional letter from Craig Chance. So I'm going to send that to you, Jamie. To
As an
send.
applicant?
Huh?
As an applicant?
No, he's the executive director
Yeah.
from so he said that he'd reviewed, that Jamie had sent him the additional applications, and so,
Okay.
just if you have any questions, to reach out to him kind of situation, but I thought I would share that with commissioners. Okay. So we're gonna save that conversation, so Agritourism Advisory, Historic Commission, and Housing Authority, bring it forward to next week, and then moving forward with appointments for the Agriculture Advisory Committee for Gary Klein as a new appointment as a non-farmer member, Robert McIntosh as a reappointment as a farmer member. For the Hotel Motel Commission, Rose Ponzoja for a member appointment, Best Western Tumwater Olympia Inn. Janine Phillips, a member appointment of the Hampton Inn and Suites Olympia Lacey. And for the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, Phyllis Farrell, a reappointment. So, BIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Just have one quick update for you. The informational flyer we were coordinating with the Port of Olympia on the ballot proposition to move from 3 to 5 board members has been developed, approved, and is currently printing. It is set to drop next week.
Is that the postcard that you showed us?
Yes, I shared that with the board last week.
Questions,
Yeah,
comments?
did you share it, I hope, with legal as well?
Legal has been involved from the beginning, both from a commission, county point of view as well as the board point of view. It's going to be a single mailer.
Yeah. Good. No mistakes, that's what we like, no mistakes.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Megan. Moving on to briefing, public hearing decisions pending, and this is the Trail Connectivity Program briefing.
Thank you. I think we have Public Works staff here present to follow up on this and we'll give you a little bit of a background related to this item. During the budget process for the biennial 2022-2023, the Board of County Commissions authorized the $2 million from real estate excise tax to increase the trail system in the county. Particularly, the board was looking for a signature project that brings value to the residents of the county itself. So Public Works, I provided you a briefing on September 15th. of this year, where Public Works walk you through the many different options for the board to consider. And that presentation is included in your packet. Commissioner Mejia was not part of that, and the reason we wanted to wait for her to be part of the decision-making process. Staff's recommendation is included on page 15 of the PowerPoint, which is the Trail Development Central, the Glacial Heritage Preserve is labeled as that on that option. On the September 15, there was a series of questions the board asked Commissioner Edwards and answered. And the department follow up with a memo to you. It is also included in your packet addressing the questions that you had at that time. So at this point, the conversations with staff as to the next steps. Hopefully the board is in the position to provide direction as to the preferred alternative, preferred option. And hopefully we can start implementing the project.
Commissioners? Staff? Let's do introductions just for the public to read.
I'm Rick Thomas, Public Works, the Project Program Management Office Manager.
Karen Weiss, Assistant Public Works Director. Shannon Shula, Strategic Planner and Long Range Planner.
Ed Marson, Parks and Trails Operation Maintenance Manager.
Okay, so commissioners, follow up from the briefing. Is there any questions or comments that you would like to make on the 4 projects?
Was there any comment that came in about I don't have the map in front of me right now, but between the 2 areas, we're talking about doing something, but then it's just gonna be that one little segment. Did we get any more comment from the citizenry about that?
We received one public comment from a private property owner regarding project number 2 for the extension from Yelm Rainier Tenino Trail to Dakota. So we had discussed that there was right-of-way, and then that one of the alternatives went through private property. And so we did receive a comment from that private property owner after the article in Olympia inquiring about the impact on his property.
Yeah, and was a favorable comment or a negative comment?
It didn't really say either. It was just basically concern of the impact of this trail to his property.
Was there anything to do with compensation,
No.
acquiring property, or just the fact that somebody's gonna be near there?
Yeah, it would be, for that project, it would require probably right-of-way acquisition or to have that trail go through that property. There were 2 options though for that project. So staff replied with a comment of like, no decision has been made. Here is the trail connectivity study that was conducted by TRPC of the impacts of both of those options.
Hold on.
The Zoom is down, but we didn't have anyone joining us.
The Zoom is hold on. It's the
You gotta have some technical problems or it wouldn't even be a proper meeting.
Weren't you gone when we did this?
Yeah,
Because I remember wanting to hear your opinion, because I was quite undecided about what.
So what is the live stream, Megan? It's fine.
I just changed the camera, so it's fine.
Okay.
I was gone during this briefing, but I reviewed it later on just to make sure I knew this was coming up for a decision, so thank you for waiting for me. And I guess I had around the same questions that the commissioners had, but and I appreciated the update we got via email. I've heard since that presentation from a lot of the South County mayors about what their preference is, and it's the Yelm Rainier to Nine Trail extension. And so they were advocating for that, and their viewpoint was coming especially because this was one of the trails that TRPC had laid out and I believe advocated for. So just wanted to give commissioners just an overview of kind of the public comments that I got in terms of that. Let me make sure I'm not completely butchering it. And, you know, they, especially with the feasibility study already being completed. So, yeah. So that was kind of, you know, kind of the comments that I got, and
were they kind of promoting, advocating for the number two?
Number two, yes.
Are you looking for a decision?
Yeah.
Today?
Direction on the next steps, and also here on the packet, it gives you a little bit of perspective of the sense of the cost. This is not a true cost, obviously, it's just to give you a perspective of the cost. The number two is the most expensive. As you may recall, there are some pieces of right-of-way that we own, and it will require to purchase additional right-of-way along the state highway. And that, you know, logistically, you know, let me predicate this. From the trail system, I don't disagree with that. But in terms of implementation, it's going to be most difficult. It's going to take us probably longer than what we expect, and may require additional funding. And that's just
for which one? For the two?
For the number two.
For number two.
It's just the most expensive and more complex out of all the options. And the staff recommendation on the segment number 4 is what I call this low-hanging fruit. It creates a connectivity with Heritage Glacier, Heritage Preserve. I think it stays within the means. We already own the right-of-way. I believe we remove the railroad trucks out of that. So really, we already have invested on that segment. So it will be an easy implementation, so we can get to the point of opening another section of trail sooner within the allocated budget. And again, you know, but if the board wants to move forward with number 2, I just want to make sure the set of expectations are clear. It may require additional time and money.
All right, let me ask about 2 quick. There was a portion of 2, I thought, that went out Vale Road towards Vale, a piece of that.
That is segment number 1.
That's in 1?
I believe, right?
Yeah, it's an extension of Chehalis Western Trail.
That's the one?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you have and if you can go to this.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of looking for it. Over here. Down here?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, need a little more paperwork here.
I'm here to help.
Yes, thank you. I need all the help I can get. I don't deny that. Okay. And so that's not part of what you're commenting on right
No.
now. Good.
It's a different segment, different
So-
option for the board.
And are you thinking that, okay, the board's kind of talking about 2 right now, but on the Gate Belmore, which I'm thinking is 4,
Yeah.
Does that mean covering that whole section? Is that what that dollar amount is supposed to do, the whole section?
No, the whole section is.
Is it just one little piece? Because there's a breakdown of
Yeah, so that section for project number 4 is to pave a 10-foot wide asphalt path for 3.6 miles, and that's between bridges 5 and 6. So that's kind of as
Slide 15.
Talk a little bit about the
15, got it.
connectivity for future grant funding
yeah,
possibilities on that one.
so that's kind of as
Okay. And that's between 4 and 6, did you say?
5 and 6. So basically,
5 and 6.
yeah, that is, as you would probably say, it's almost like shovel ready. That would just need to be cleared, and we would need to go through and pave that. Of
Yeah.
all the projects, that is the most like shovel ready. And then option number 1 would probably be the second shovel ready type project.
And what's the difference in cost on those two? So 4 is a total of almost $1 million?
Yeah, it's like
1.2, number 4.
$2 and $20.
Yeah, that's the caveat.
Yes.
And then the other one is about $650,000 and the 22.
Yeah, and number 2 is close to what?
Number 2 is close to 2 million and 2 and some change for,
So we're looking at probably
Actually,
6 million or something.
it would actually be more than that. So that first section is Tenino to 184th, which is a 2.5 miles. That in itself is close to 2 million. And then GR2, which is that second section, there's those 2 alternatives, A and B, from 184th to Bakota. One is through alternative A through the private property, and that would be right-of-way acquisition, and it's also located in the Skookumchuck Basin floodplain. So there would need to be more engineering design stuff for that, and that was estimated at about 2.22 million. The alternative B, which is along SR 507, it crosses over. That alternative was about 1.15 million.
When you say private property, is the railroad part of that private property? Is part of it owned by the railroad?
Yeah, BNSF owns the railroad, which is still active, and the private property owner owns both sides of BNSF, so there still would be acquisition from that private property owner.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So I guess I want to make sure that I'm understanding, because we're wringing our hands like, oh my gosh, which project are we going to do? But we allocated last year $1 million a year ongoing. So it seems to me
It was one time.
$1 million.
It was one time. And the one time was to find a signature trail project that you would like to support. It was not an ongoing.
Robin, will you check? I believe
That's
2 million,
It's
1
2
million
million.
each of 2022 and 2023.
And I
I'll
told,
have to look, but I just looked at the REIT 2 financial plan. I'll have to check again, but I thought it was only
one each year.
one.
But I
Let me look at what we received.
But it was one time.
We have so many things, so many balls in the air all the time, it's hard to keep track of all of them. Actually, what I'm gonna suggest, Madam Chair, is this topic, I don't think we can solve this in 5 minutes. And I think we need maybe a work session on this.
Whatever you like to do, or just
I-
follow up.
I don't know what my seatmates think about that.
yeah, I mean, I need to know how much money we have to spend, because it's not, my recollection doesn't comport with what I'm hearing. In fact, I remember when Robin came and you gave it you're the one that gave it the name, the Let's Connect Trail Program.
I did.
And it wasn't, you don't call a program a one-time expenditure for a project, like that was.
I had not been proposing a one-time expenditure, but that's what got into the approval.
I know the board could always, if we didn't have the money, we could always have revised that, but the thought was that REIT was coming in at a strength and a level that we would be able to maintain that. So maybe we can't, but that was certainly the discussion. I'm not misremembering that. And so if there's $2 million, then, and that's all we have, then I guess we're doing 1 and 4, or we're doing 2.
and I don't want to further complicate the discussion, but I'm sure I probably will. Keep in mind, I believe you could be using your parks impact fees to leverage some of this funding where you are adding capacity. Rob, and I'll look for you to chime in affirmatively if we were to come forward with a proposal, but.
So Karen, I know that perhaps you could give me a hint.
Yeah, and I'd like to
While they're
add,
looking that up though, we've inconvenienced a lot of staff to come participate with us this morning. And I just don't know if it's fair to them, I don't know if it's fair to the citizens for us to be pushed into a situation and make this determination right now amongst a little confusion, there's a little confusion going on. I would like to have all that stuff rectified and have a work session on this. So we can do it right. I want to do it right. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to do it right. So.
yeah, I'd like to add that we, staff did consult and discuss some of the different proposals because with TRPC, because of the article that was wrote in the Olympian regarding the previous briefing. And the Gate Belmore Trail has been something that the county has has proposed to work on for many, many years. And much of the sections are still unimproved trails. And so when we discussed these potential options, there seemed to be support from TRPC that the Gate Belmore was also it was also a recommended choice and it was because it's been a project that the county has been trying to work on for such a long time, and getting a section of that and its location to glacial heritage, Miama Mountains, and Capitol Forest for mountain bikers, it provides a park option for that part of the county.
So there's South County representatives on TRPC. So if that's true, why is Commissioner Mejia hearing that that's not the one they want? They want the Dakota extension. Why aren't there TRPC representatives piping up and saying, no, we saw this at TRPC. All the things you just said, which makes sense, mean that we support Gate Belmore. There's a disconnect here. So
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this, and I think that was a good synopsis of what we're up against. And I'm kind of leaning that way. I'm curious about what you've been hearing, because I think we've taken pretty good care of Young, Rainier, and Tenino. Now, not saying that we don't want to reach out to Dakota at some time, but do we want to do that at the detriment of the Gate Belmore Trail, I guess, because we do need to do something there, and we've got it almost done, Torp track and all that. We just don't have money for bridges, is kind of the way I see it.
On point. Yeah, that's the bridges is.
The bridges are the problem.
The more expensive.
So we could do quite a section that could be utilized by a lot of folks. But again, I really don't want to do it today versus.
We'll schedule a follow-up briefing. Yeah, that's absolutely on point.
We also have REIT, the review of the REIT fund on the schedule for, I think, tomorrow in part of the budget briefing.
You've scared me to death on that $10 million that you heard about yesterday, so.
Yeah, that's gotta be REIT 1, and we're talking about REIT 2 here.
Okay, but still,
It's
okay.
different.
So on October 14th, I got invited to meet with the South County mayors. And so I'm happy to kind of ask them again on especially because,
Can you take Shannon?
Yeah.
Maybe just go over that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'd like to hear the argument for the Gate Belmore.
Yeah.
If we can get it done faster, if there's an argument about getting grant money, and once we have that section, then we can get grants, we can get this thing extended, and there's mountain bike, I want to hear all that. I also see the flip side that, I know it wasn't well received that it was said in that article that we didn't know anything about the Big Coda, and everybody's like, if everyone had served on TRPC, which included me, was like, wait a minute, I've seen presentations of Paul Brewster and a feasibility study, so it felt like somehow that felt like, when somebody sees a piece of misinformation like that, it kind of gets your what's going on here? Why is this being characterized in a way that's not accurate?
Well, that was like why the follow-up memo kind of hit on all those different projects, like the capital trail from that early regional trails plan, and then we included the feasibility study for the Bucota study. We kind of included all those things, and all of these project estimates come from those initial studies. And, you know, and as you stated, one of the questions that we broached to TRPC and other entities was like, does this project make us more feasible for future grant funding? And the response was, yes, it does.
And this, I just want to point out, because it's kind of, and I'm not decided on this at all, but the flip side of connectivity is when you're connecting one community to another, the opportunities for people, you know, people are in Bucota already have to go to Tenino for certain things, and the opportunity for them to commute or use that as an actual transportation from one place to another versus the Gate Bowmore is really a recreation issue in a sense. I mean, it's not connecting anything. I mean, not right now, this segment.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, you might, you know, hopefully we'll get that connection, but you know, those are the considerations. As your briefing pointed out, there's different criteria, you know, that we're looking at. Improving connectivity by linking trail systems, forming a network between neighborhoods, parks, schools, open spaces, boom. Bucota wins hands down on that criteria. Promoting community by expanding the regional trail system to connect urban and rural communities. So I mean, it's easy to look at this and see why somebody could argue under the criteria for the Bucota extension. Although I see that there's good arguments on the other one as well. So anyway, I'd love to see that detailed information provided to Commissioner Mejia's meeting, and so that at least when we're getting this reaction, we're getting informed reaction from the South County leadership. If they think of all that and they still feel the way they feel, great, that's good input for us.
Okay, so a couple of steps in here. Shannon will provide support to you on the upcoming meeting with the South County mayors on the October 14th. And we'll work on scheduling a follow-up briefing to the board just to, most likely after October 14th. So that will be an opportunity to get your feedback.
Shannon, and so I'll connect with you after so we can coordinate on that, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so this will be scheduled for a follow-up briefing. Next is the JASCOM letter, review next steps.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in August, late August, you received a letter from the Executive Director of JASCOM. It's a somewhat lengthy letter. And the bottom line is for you to consider amending the code to add a couple of definitions. The premise of those definitions is they make an point that in the community they have what we call as wild cats, and that's part of any community. It's just wild cats that just run freely and reproduce freely. The strategies that we currently have is catch those wild cats and euthanize them, kill them while we hold them in the JASCOM. So that practice has not been effective. And this letter states that there's a couple of strategies that are more effective or more humane to those cats. They will capture, they will vaccinate them, they will neuter them, and they will release them back. So it continues to roam, but it will not be reproducing in the long term. So that's really the background of what this letter is, but the punchline is for the board to consider adding those definitions, two definitions on Thurston County Code 9.10030. And the first definition is community cat. And community cat means any free roaming cat that may be cared by one or more residents in the area, known or unknown. Community cats with ears tipped were sterilized and vaccinated against rabies, and at least one time. Community cats are not considered pet animals. That's the definition.
Not considered what?
Pet animals. And definition number 2 for you to consider adding is the community cat caregiver. And it reads as the proposal as follows, means a person who provides care to a community cat in the form of food, water, shelter, and veterinary care while not being considered the owner, custodian, harborer, possessor, or keeping of a community cat. So those are the two definitions for considerations on that. I'm just going to bring this to your attention.
Who's gonna pay for all this?
Jessica.
Jessica.
What's it gonna cost?
I remember.
They haven't assessed that at all?
No.
So with the cost, I mean, right now it's costing more to euthanize the cats than to do this approach. And so in talking with other jurisdictions, not only across the state, but across the US, to kind of see what other animal services are doing, this was one of the recommendations that came out of that. And so it would be basically that budget, I guess, that we have to euthanize these cats would be used to instead neuter, vaccinate, and release. And it, like I said, it is cheaper than euthanizing the animals. So
Who brings the cats in?
so usually it's either by complaints, like someone, you know, there's a cat, or sometimes community members will bring them in.
We don't have a cat patrol without a cat.
Okay, well, we do. It says in this letter that animal control officers round up cats, typically in response to nuisance complaints, attempt to adopt out the ones they can and then euthanize the remaining.
I mean, so do we trap them? I guess we put traps out. Is that what we
So
do?
when there's complaints, like they don't just go
Trap
out there
patrol,
hungry
yeah.
up patrolling for.
Similar to complaints with dogs.
Yeah.
It's the same officers who do their compliance.
Are you recommending that we do this? You know more about it.
So,
I do.
yeah, so basically, Thurston County was, props to our ordinance team, whoever made this ordinance, the changes were very, I think we had the jurisdiction that had the least amount of changes, which was only to add kind of the definitions. The other jurisdictions have to basically kind of get in line with more of our ordinance and how it's laid out. So just with how it was laid out in terms of just adding the definitions, it was like, well, I mean, I didn't seem like I was not opposed to that, just because it would clarify kind of what a community cat means. And so that's why I supported it. But the whole JASCOM board was present, and they all supported changing their ordinance to kind of align more to Thurston County's. Which is not technically how it was laid out, but that's how I saw it.
That's how it was sold.
And so you're saying we ought to go ahead and do this?
For me, my questions would be like, with an ordinance like this, would we have to have a public hearing? What would be the process for us to hear?
Every time the board will consider changing the Thurston County code, you need to have a public hearing.
Okay.
This is pretty, my humble perspective, not a non-issue. It's something that you may consider accommodating this request. Adding a definition really doesn't bind the county to any financial commitments. And it's really just to align with the rest of the jurisdictions on how they define these community cats.
You know, there are places around the county that have a rat problem. And maybe this could be sold as a solving the rat problem by having the cat problem take over the rat problem. I'm good too.
Okay, so we'll find out, you will see this item coming up, not necessarily as an emergency, but you will see it.
Perfect. Okay, so then our next commissioner item is Capital Lake Deschutes Estuary MOU.
Switch one dry.
And we have Jeff Gadman, our county treasurer, joining us for this conversation.
So it's Commissioner.
He has hand
Grab it.
Oh, okay.
You'll be right back.
So
He's going to lunch.
I'm gonna take a little time. No, he shouldn't be going to lunch. So, I think I believe, the board was somewhat expecting this MOU related to the Capital Lake Deschutes Estuary. So allow me to give you a little bit of background and give you a little more specificity as to what this MOU is intended to do and what includes with it. Let me take you back in 2018, the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services began the process to prepare an environmental impact statement, EIS. And the purpose of this EIS was to evaluate the potential impacts and benefits of long-term management activities at Capitol Lake. Also known as the Deschutes Estuary. Within the EIS, there was a lot of, as you may recall, through the legislative process, we wanted the legislature to allocate funding to the EIS process, which they did. In 1 year, the State Department of Enterprise Services, DES, reached out to the jurisdictions. In this case, it's the Squaxin Lot in Thurston County, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater Lot, and Port of Olympia, to commit some financial support to the EIS. Back then, the county contributed money to the effort of the EIS process.
How much?
It was a unanimous decision. I believe it was close to 50,000, if I recall that.
And at some point, I'd like to know that answer, make sure I get it right. when I'm done.
Exactly how much we've paid in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get that for you.
So that was that commitment. So following that, the EIS was concluded. And the conclusion of the EIS determined the most feasible option will be the estuary option, meaning removing the dam that was constructed back in the 40s and 50s, actually. I'll give you that here in a minute, the specific. So through this process, and there has been a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings, which is they form a group called the Deschutes Estuary, a funding and governance group. In the funding and governance group include representatives from the state of Washington, the State Department of Enterprise Services, also representatives from the Department of Natural Resources, the Squaxin Island Tribe, Thurston County, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, Lot, and the Port of Olympia. County representatives have included a commissioner for the last 3 years. Commissioner Messick has represented the Thurston County in this particular group, as well as the Jeff Gutman and County Treasurer related to the funding aspects of that. So the funding and governance group have reached somewhat of a preliminary consensus on a range of topics that is outlined in this MOU. To clarify, this MOU is not a binding document, and it's not a binding agreement, and it's just a description of the progress made to date, and perhaps creating an umbrella as to how this will move forward in terms of cooperating approach related to managing the estuary. The ultimate goal after this MOU is signed by all the local jurisdictions will be to enter into interlocal agreement, an ILA, and that is the formal document, as you are well aware, as to how they determine roles and responsibilities related to this particular project. But before that happens, something needs to occur. And as you may recall, for some of you who have probably at some point used Capitol Lake as a swimming area, that was...
The older people here probably have done that.
I didn't want to say that. But that particular, due to water quality issues, was closed back in 1985 by the county's Department of Health because it was significant issues related to water quality. And that was the main reason as to why this particular swimming area was closed. So since then, there has been an issue related to the water quality, as to how we can improve the water quality on this area. And as you have been reading over the last year, invasive species have taken over the lake. One in particular is the New Zealand mud snail. They really became evident back in even 2009. They continues to be an issue as to how they can be eradicated. And the eradication, I believe, of that particular invasive species is when you just drain the water and the exposure by itself to the environment will take care of that. Honestly.
Could I interject something here? Just, as this goes on, I'm gonna withhold most of my comments until we get to the end of this. But that snail issue has spread everywhere. So it's not just Capitol Lake, that if we fix this, the snail issue goes away. I just wanna make sure
The point
public knows.
The point of this is not to deal with invasive species, it's to deal with the Capitol Lake.
Okay.
The invasive species is just one element.
Just one of the things.
Yeah, one element of the related to the water quality.
But it makes it sound like we're kind of gonna fix the problem of the invasive species by fixing Capitol Lake.
So this MOU start talking about the financial responsibilities by different parties. And that is really the gist of this MOU. Before any in-local agreement can be put in place, the state has to reach out to the legislature to allocate money for the actual improvement of this, meaning remove the dam and improve this area as an estuary. And that is, at this point, is the state's sole responsibility in terms of the funding through the legislative process. That has not changed. And I believe the board has had discussions that, the state is the one who built the dam back in, I think, 1951. In that way, they created the issue, and I paraphrase what I've heard from the board members here. So this particular MOU acknowledges that presence really is for the states having the responsibility for the improvements to remove the dam and do the infrastructure related to the estuary. But also, after the construction is completed, there is the partnership of the jurisdictions that I just mentioned to you as to how we're going to be managing the estuary in the long term. In managing this estuary, really related is to managing this the silt migration that is coming from up the river. And that is not unknown because the dam has created, and that's one of the biggest problems in water quality, is the silt migration that has populated Capitol Lake. And we have estimated that it's just about 35,000 tons of silt that will be able to have to be managed after the fact.
Per year? Per year, right?
I don't, it's per year the contribution, but the managing the silt per year may not be the actions that we need to take. It's something that needs to be vetted into an in-local agreement as to how we're gonna have to do that, the management of it.
You know, at this point in time, I want to point out that I was pretty adamant that we do an evaluation of the upper Deschutes River. And the state said, no, we don't want to look at the upper Deschutes River. We're just going to look at the lower Deschutes River as far as contributing to any of the problems at the lake. And that has never been done, that we've ever looked at the upper river. And I guess I have to point out, the upper river is mostly logging activity. And when you log too close to the river, you end up with a lot of silt in the water.
So I appreciate that, Commissioner. In fact, the Board of County Commissioners submitted a letter to the State Department a couple of years ago, where they asked to expand the scope of work of the EIS.
Yes.
And that did not occur.
Yes. We did. We sent environmental health to do water quality testing for a year on all the different points in the upper Deschutes to see if that was in fact the source of the issue, and it wasn't. So
that was for nitrates. That was nitrate review. This is sediment.
Because that's what you were talking about, the chemical fertilizer.
I mean, both are my concern.
Well, that was the main one I was hearing about.
Oh, no, well, I've been harping on that for a long time, yes. We all have our little projects.
So, speaking of the next steps, after this MOU is approved by all the different partners, as I outlined earlier in that conversation, the state needs to reach out to state legislature to start allocating funding to begin the design and permitting of the estuary alternative. And that will be in the 2003 biennial budget. If funding is secure, the estimated time will be 3 to 5 years to design and permit this process, which could begin in the mid-2023. If it's 6 years, the design and permitting will take us all the way to just about at the end of this decade. They expect the actual construction to begin by, I believe, 2033, just about 11 years from today, where the actual construction of the completion of this estuary project will be done. And at that point is when the silt and management will be part of the overall long-term process. The intent of this ILA is to lay out a long-term strategy from the different partners, which is take us all the way to 2050. Well, way beyond our lives here in Thurston County, perhaps.
I'm gonna be here.
Thurston County government. Thurston County government. So we put it in perspective as we start assigning responsibilities by the many different jurisdictions. And again, the state of Washington is responsible for the construction up to the completion of the alternative estuary. The Esquashan Island Tribe will participate in the implementation of habitat enhancement plan and will be all the way to construction facilitating the permitting process of this project. Thurston County at this point has not been identified as to what we need to do in terms of the after the fact, whether we have an active role on the project or not. However, there is a financial contribution that I will touch base here in a minute. The city of Olympia will be the responsible party of the new what are called the Fifth Avenue Bridge after the dam is removed. The city of Tumwater will be responsible for what are called the boardwalks in the South Basin as part after the estuary project is completed and is implemented as a park. Lot is still continued to be a partner, but still need to identify and look for what will be their role. And certainly the Port of Olympia will be a key on the managing the silt. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Mason and I attended a briefing to the Port of Olympia related of this particular project. So, and again, this is just provide the premise of what this MOU does. And again, it really identifies two key elements on this in terms of financial responsibility. The state is responsible for the removal and implementation and enhancement of the Capitol Lake, and the jurisdictions as a whole will be responsible in the long-term management of the maintenance as well as the silt management. So within that context, this has a potential contribution by the county. And then you see in this particular item, and there's a chart at the end of the MOU, out of all the overall cost, which 100% Thurston County will be responsible for 1%. And it has an estimated cost of contributions of $2,865,000 for the next 30 years. So this is
per year or what?
No, for the next 30 years. So you can do the math. I believe it's probably close to 130,000 or so. And in fact, early in the conversation with the board was having the priorities based for this upcoming budget. We identified this must be as a potential budget option that you have, and we allocated, excuse me, and we looked whether the stormwater fee could be a funding as to how we can contribute that. Robin stated that it is an allowable cost. This is not an impact to the general fund, but again, that's an option for the board to consider. The first contribution, if everything, all the stars align in terms of the legislative action to add funding for the implementation and having all the in-local agreements in place, the first contribution from the county will be 2025. So within I'll stop there.
Did you say 1% would be our contribution?
The overall, yeah, 1%. And the main contributor on the overall project is the state, which is at 92%. Again, this is not a binding document. This is just create the umbrella as to how we need to move forward. I myself have worked on past revisions of this MOU, and which in previous revisions, the county was put as a financial fiduciary responsible party. This is not included in this MOU, which I'm in a position to recommend the board for approval. If you do, will authorize me to sign this MOU on your behalf, and that's the conclusion of my presentation. You want to add anything, or did I miss anything?
No, I just would, the reason this MOU is coming up now is because the final EIS is going to be issued at the end of the month. And the idea is that we'll get this MOU attached to the EIS so that we're showing an entire package, including commitment on local jurisdictions to the legislature, because they're going to be asking for the beginning of the funding for designing the project.
Asking the legislature.
Yeah.
So if the legislature doesn't allocate funding,
We're kind of dead in the water.
that doesn't happen. And this MOU doesn't move, and the interlocal agreements will not occur.
And I might mention, there's been different attempts since, what, it was 85 last time they did anything down there? You know, they're tried, it just hasn't ever worked out.
The dollars that this chart is, I missed the last couple of meetings because I've been triple booked with things, so I don't know exactly why the changes were made to the chart. It's different, different chart than we've saw in the previous drafts, and if 2.865 is a 30-year commitment to the county, that's $95,000, $500 a year. Where I know we were talking more like 130 or whatever it was before.
I didn't do the math up, thank you.
So that's come down. Exactly.
Might be a
how
CPI thing in there.
Appears that the first payment though wouldn't be made until 2025.
And that's my other point that I wanted to
Yeah,
make, because
so-
I said, I saw that in there, and it might be later than that, but that's the earliest, and that was represented to us. You would not have to budget for this before 2025, so I wanted to make sure that was on the table.
And that is important,
We
Dave.
talked about our budget this
Because
year.
at this point, budget decision, you're not gonna be stupid and not make budget decision for 2023, because that will be in the upcoming biennium. You'll have that discussion.
Now we're down to 95.
And that's 95, and also, by next year, when you are discussing the 2024-2025 biennium, we'll know if the legislature has allocated funding to continue with this project.
That's right.
And by then, we should have a new local in place if that occurred. So the timing is there, and again, this MOU is really is a good document, I believe, at this point for the board to consider.
I would agree with that. It clearly says that the other jurisdictions wouldn't start contributing money until the state makes a commitment. So that is one form of bit of protection. And then if we don't make the first payment until 2025, and this goes through 2050, then it's about 115,000 a year, but it's in that range. And if we're paying it out of stormwater fees, it's not unreasonable.
And I believe it's, as a region, we need to be part of that solution. I'll stop there.
Do you know, was there ever any talk about having a power plant down there where the dam is right now, producing electricity?
Don't know.
I mean, it just seems like it's a lot of waste. We could have a fish ladder and a power.
Well, I think, I don't know, I think from an engineering standpoint, that dam is big enough to house a turbine. And the other thing, the reason the dam was there was to create the lake. So I don't know that you can, use it as a spillway to power a turbine. But I'm not a power plant engineer, so.
Oh, that's one of my other hats.
So, questions, next steps, if you'd like to think about this, I can bring this item next Tuesday morning. I know this is the first time you have looked at it. It's in your document for you to review. But as Jeff stated, it's a little bit of a sense of urgency for you to weigh in on this MOU. So I will bring this next Tuesday morning to continue the conversation, and we'll ask for direction at that time.
And that's all we're doing is participating at this point. We're not signing an agreement that says this is it, we're locked in, any of that,
Yeah,
right?
it's just like
It's still a work in progress.
It's
Might
like-
have a power plant there yet.
like I don't think we get to the point on this MOU.
Well,
but-
you never know. I mean, I'm
But,
optimistic. I like to think we can always make progress.
It's a document to really clear outlines and understanding among the partners. So that's all.
A lot of work
Thank
went
you.
into it.
I'll get you in touch with Squaxin Island Tribe so you can discuss that.
Thank you. Yeah, so I need to stew on this. Okay, Commissioners, 11:59. Are there any pressing commissioner items that you need to discuss? And just as a reminder, we do have a planning session coming up.
We move it to in November.
Oh, never mind. Okay,
Yeah, I
There's
think,
never
I think
time.
commissioners had conflicts on that day.
okay, never mind that.
My schedule's a little compressed the next 5 weeks.
Okay, so,
I couldn't have all three commissioners for the undivided attention, so reschedule.
Makes sense.
anything pressing?
A
Okay.
lot of things pressing. Is there time to discuss those? No.
No. Okay, 12 PM, we are adjourned.
Okay.